sitting here with this executive who helped create TBN. And I was just like, okay, I'll be back. And we talked about it and we went home and I emailed the guy, followed up. He says, I tell you what, let me start off by putting Trackstarz on these television networks that I manage. And let's see how the traction from Trackstarz can get you the momentum you need for render.
Welcome back. Corona season, episode 4. I'm here with Ryan Righteous of the Trackstarz and ATL. What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. This man is awesome. He's a man of God. He's a husband, father of 3. He's the co-founder and co-owner of Trackstarz. Mm-hmm. And he also works in a nonprofit organization as a recruiter.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for taking your time out of your day.
I know no problem. My pleasure.
So we were talking earlier saying, it sounds like you got a full day ahead of you, even though we're in the middle of this Corona season is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
But thank you again. So we're going to kind of just dive in. I know we chat a little before all this, but we're just going to kind of dive in. So kind of starting with your man of God. So can you tell us just a quick testimony of just your life and how you met Jesus?
Yeah. So I was one of those people that was born and raised in the church. Early on, my mom just taught me different things about Jesus and to make room for him in my life, right? And I literally did not know what that meant, but I remember being like the age of 7 years old and falling out of the bed and going back and telling my mom, like, hey, I fell out the bed. And she was like, how'd you fall? I said, I made room for Jesus and there wasn't enough room for me. And so she had a good laugh about that. And she was like, she explained to me, Jesus and everything. And it was always a prayer time and say your grace before you eat. And both my parents were heavily involved in the church, and it just stuck with me, right? And so I'd probably say around the age of 12, I started understanding Jesus for myself and kind of like cultivating a life for him. And it stayed with me, man. I was one of those people that stayed on track for the Lord and took a lot of heat from it. I got into a lot of fights in high school. I was bullied because I was the guy running around always talking about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I even got into a fight one day and I told this gang that was trying to fight me that they were outnumbered because I had Jesus on my side. And it was the craziest thing, man. I got my behind whooped that day. But you know what I mean? It's good because God was teaching me something in that moment, right? So my relationship with Christ has always been where it is today. I've gotten stronger. I've gotten more developed. I've gotten more disciplined. But I'm a person that recognizes that I'm a sinner just like everyone else, and I need forgiveness in my life. And I have to have these crutches in my life that I call vices that prove to me that I need a personal Lord and Savior. So here I am with him. He's with me, and I pray that it stays that way.
Nice. Would you mind sharing one of those thorns in your side or crutches, as you like to call, or vices?
So insecurity is a big one for me, man. It's really big. I can go back to the day in 9th grade where I was a freshman in high school, and I thought, this is going to be my year to break out and not be so geeky and so abnormal to most people, right? I'm in a new school. Some of the people know me from middle school, but not everybody does because it was, a feeder school where 3 different middle schools came together for one high school. And it just didn't work out. I remember saying something one day, trying to pump myself up. And this girl, she looked at me and she says, you are the ugliest person I've ever seen. And you will never, ever get my phone number. Because I don't even ask for it. I think I might have said something like, you want to study together? And I was talking about in the classroom. And when she tore me down that day, it stuck with me, man. I mean, I was acne, braces, glasses, skinny, a devout Christian. Like I had everything that was, the world saw as geeky working in my favor. Like as a geek, I was the world's biggest geek. I even did Urkel impressions and Steve Urkel challenge opportunities when they had contests on the Family Matters TV show. Like I used to dress up like Urkel and I could do the impressions really good. So
it's awesome.
it was a crazy life, man. So that's still my thing is insecurity. And so right now, I live for the success of everything I put my hands to. right? If it doesn't turn out right, those people will write about me in some way. I feel that, right?
Mm.
And I've been very transparent with my wife and my family and my Trackstarz family all about this, and they know, like, hey, you cannot live through this. If God tells you to put this down tomorrow, you've got to find another identity. You cannot live through your successes and what you do and what you are and are not a part of. So
That's good. That's good.
yeah.
I think, yeah, as especially, I think just people, we just get caught up in what we do and we claim that as our identity. That's easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody does that. And if you don't do it, if you say you don't do it, you're lying to yourself because it's not.
Yeah. And I
That's
can
good.
tell you what I just described is what a non-believer or someone who doesn't know Christ, that type of insecurity would lead you into the gang life, right?
Mm.
But because I have brothers in Christ, because I have a foundation in Christ, because I know that this is all in my head and the enemy just wants to bring me down, I can still overcome those challenges and not look toward a gang, right? Not look for validation from the world, but validation from my own inner circle, my wife and my kids and my Trackstarz family and my family in general, you know? So
That's good. That's good.
yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to come back to, well, I'll just ask you. So you're in Atlanta,
Yep.
ATL. What part are you in? Like where you guys
So
live?
I'm on the outskirts of Atlanta, about 17 minutes away from the city. It's called Douglasville. But you know, whenever you say you're from Atlanta, you're like, I'm from Atlanta, right? So I mean, I hang out there, I frequent there all the time. I was actually born and raised in Atlanta. I moved out here when I met my wife, and we bought a house because out here you can get a lot of house for the money. So that's how I ended up here in Douglasville. But like I said, 17 minutes away from the city, about a 12-mile drive into the city. So, you know, Atlanta's my home. That's my roots.
Nice, nice. So you kind of touched on your wife. So can you tell us how you guys met and how long you guys have been married?
Yeah, so we met at church. She uh, had sprained her ankle at church one day, and she was limping around the church. And I was talking with a friend of mine, and she walked up saying, "Hey, I can't drive my car. Can you drive me home?" Because she was talking to, I guess, her neighbor at the time. And I started talking about my master's program, and she came in and she started telling me about her master's program. And I would say this is the truth about Trackstarz, right? All of us met our wives at church, but we didn't get to know them without the help of social media.
Mm.
So when I met my wife, I didn't ask for her number right away. I went on her social media. I went on Facebook, and I was like, can I see myself with her? Let me check out her page. Let me check out her profile. Let me see what she's about. I saw a lot of, you know, devotion to God, and her walk was pure and all that good stuff. And I was like, okay. So she actually, I would say she made the first move. She's going to deny this if she ever hears this. She made the first move, man. She commented. Yeah, she did. She commented on a piece that I wrote on Facebook. You know, back in the day, you might still have this on Facebook. I haven't seen it in years, but you could write little notes, and it was kind of like a journal, and people could see your notes in your post. And so I made this note, and she commented on one of my notes, and I was like, oh, okay. Time to instant message her and get that phone number. And so that's exactly what I did. So the first night, yeah, people know me as a talker. Like, I'm very extroverted. So the first night, I got her phone number. We talked on the phone for 8 hours. I knew that day she was my wife.
Oh,
and
wow.
then after that, the next day I got up and I took an Apple to her school. I put on my finest suit. I put on a trench coat, and I walked up to her school's front desk, which is funny. Ironically, she was a teacher at the school that I went to middle school for. So when I went back, I saw people that were still in the front office that knew me from my days in high school, right? I told you I was a troublemaker, so I was known. I was a fighter. I was expelled. I was in schools in ISS and all that kind of stuff. So they knew me. So I asked, could I go to her classroom, and they let me go to her classroom during planning period. And I took her Apple, and I said, "This is from my favorite teacher." And that kind of much, you know, sealed the deal at that point.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
ballsy, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I was 29 years old. I knew exactly what I wanted in a woman and a wife. God had taken me through some ups and downs where I met people that were not the right fit for me, but they were attracted to what I was doing with my life. And I could see them trying to gravitate to me in the wrong ways. And so God quickly shut that down and sent me a bride that was 100% sold on me.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the next question is, so you have now you guys been married for a bit now, and you
Hmm.
guys have 3 kids.
Yes.
What are their ages and what's life like in your household?
Man, let me tell you. So I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, all girls. Right. So I just pause right there for the audience to kind of laugh and go, ah, right. And so and so they keep me so busy, man. I have my oldest and my youngest, they look like me, right? And so I'm always looking at them to figure out like how much of my mannerisms do you really have? And my middle child seems to have more of my mannerisms, but she looks exactly like my wife.
Mm.
And the problem with my mannerism is that I was very sneaky as a kid. I was very mischievous and I was always getting into stuff. My middle child is Dutch. She does that all the time. All the time. You call her name, she acts like she didn't hear you. She'll hide under the table when you're like, hey, where are you? Where are you? She'll pretend like you're not there. You know, I say, hey, have a good day at school. Daddy loves you. She just looks at me with this cold stare, won't say a word, right? Um, Pick her up from school. Hey, how was your day? Cold stare. But as soon as she gets home, she talks. She will not talk outside the house to me or my wife when we're in a public environment. I don't know what that's about, but it feels funny because I almost think these teachers think we might be abusing her, right? Because she just doesn't say anything, man. And then she gets into school, she talks to them. So I always look for that in my kids. And their names are Ryla, Layla, and Mariah. And all of them are named after me and my wife. Ryla is a mixture of Ryan and Latoya. Layla is the beginning of my wife's first name. And then the two girls have the same last 3 letters in common. And then my daughter Mariah, we spell it Moriya because our last name is Moore. So we took the first 2 letters. So everybody has the first 2 letters of somebody's name.
That's dope.
But here's a secret I haven't put out to the world yet.
Oh,
We're
exclusive.
trying
Hold on,
for that boy.
exclusive. You trying for a boy?
Yeah. We're trying for that boy.
You're going
Yeah, we're
for.
trying for him. So we'll see. Yeah, you know what? It was prophesied that there was going to be a boy in my life. And I was like, what was that? My nephew? Is it my godson? Like, how is this happening? And so this lady was just like, hey, when God sends you your son, he's gonna take over the mantle of everything you're doing. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I have 3 girls, so it's probably gonna be one of them, right? She was like, no. She's like, when God gives you your son. And I was like, I told my wife, and we had talked about it. We were done having kids. I was like, I'm ready to sleep through the night again. I don't want to go through this, diapers and all this kind of stuff. I'm 37 years old. I don't want to be the 40-year-old guy chasing a 3-year-old around on the t-ball field. Like, I just don't want to be that. And when she told us that, me and my wife looked at each other and we were like, man, God has a sense of humor. So if it's up to him, it happens.
Quit playing, God. Quit playing.
Yeah. Now, if this next child becomes a girl, then I know we got to look into adoption. And we'll adopt somebody who's like already in pull-ups,
Yo, that's crazy, man. Me and my wife were just recently talking about that, and we've been going back and
Yeah.
forth on number 4. We're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
because we feel like our little one, Ryder, our youngest, he's the boy.
Yeah.
Like, he needs a little friend to play with, because like the girls they're partnered up. They're always hanging out. Sometimes they kick Ryder out of the room because he just wiles out and breaks everything.
Yeah.
But we're just like, but we want one, but we don't, because the same thing. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
my wife was too prophesied as 2 as well.
Okay.
Talking about like, I don't remember exactly what it was. I'm forgetting it right now. But anyways, it's something something similar or something along the same veins. And we're just like, does that mean this or does it mean this? God, what does that mean? And just like,
right. Yeah,
so.
you don't know. And if I were you, I would have stopped when I had the boy. I would have been like, oh, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, whatever Ryder doesn't have in a little brother, you can be that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
get on the floor and play with the Transformers and the GI Joes and all that. I would have loved that option because the 4th child coming along means that I might have to possibly give up my man cave. Not so sure I want to do that. I've already given up my man cave one time, but I don't want to do that again. Like,
it's being real. It's real. It's real.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something. That's funny, man. Well, thanks for sharing all that. So we're gonna kind of get into so you have 2 main things that you do outside of the home. We're gonna talk about Trackstarz first.
Sure.
Just get into that. Actually, no, let's flip that because I feel like we can talk on Trackstarz for a minute.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
you're currently doing Trackstarz as well as, and that entails Trackstarz, render, hosting shows,
yeah,
organizing things behind the scenes. Like
yeah.
I can imagine like that just piles up quick.
Oh man, it piles up so quick. And let me tell you that we're in our 14th year of the brand, right? And so Trackstars is really originally owned through our LLC, which is called J. LLC.
Mhm.
And Trackstars is a brand within um, the LLC. However, Trackstars became more of a business because the brand grew and was the most recognizable. Before Trackstars Music and before Trackstars Radio, we had something called Strong Tower Radio and we had something called Freedom Music Group. Which the guys are rappers, so they're part of that group called FMG, but the label was called Freedom Music Group. And when we realized that Trackstars was, getting the buzz on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and everybody was, the YouTube channel was doing really well, and people knew us through Trackstars, we changed everything else to Trackstars brand. So Trackstars became Trackstars Radio, Trackstars TV, Trackstars Film, Trackstars Events. All of that became just one sole brand. And so when we decided to do music distribution, we decided, well, that doesn't need to be Trackstars, right? I mean, it can be, but we probably want another name for it. So we came up with Nectar Distribution. And then when we started the streaming platform Render, we said, well, that can't be done through Trackstars. And a lot of this is because we want partners in these things, right? We don't want people to feel like Trackstars is trying to make a name for itself, or the faces of Trackstars are trying to blow up and use your content to make that happen. We want it to really be, hey, Trackstars is what we're known by, but all these other brands are brainchildren of our bigger vision. So it's been 14 years for Trackstars, 3 years for Nectar, and about 4 months for Render. So it all has grassroots that we have been laying foundations for the last 10, 15 years.
So with that,
Mhm.
um, how did you guys come up with each name? So like Trackstarz, we'll start there. Like where did that come from? What does that mean? What does it represent?
So me and Shantana, we used to work at a secular radio station here in Atlanta. It's the biggest hip hop station, Hot at 1079. It's one of the Radio One properties. And we were there and we were sitting in the studio, and had just come back from a big concert. It's called Birthday Bash. It's the biggest Southeast concert that they put on every summer. And we saw the artists were falling over drunk. We saw that they were harassing girls. We saw that women were doing unspeakable things for these artists, behind closed doors. I mean, you could see this world, and the music that was behind it was deteriorating our youth, and they didn't have an alternative. And so me and Sean were sitting in the office one day, and we were just like, man, there's got to be a better alternative to offer our kids so that our generation just doesn't fall by the wayside and die. And my best friend from growing up, and he kind of took me aside one day, and he was like, hey, I got this new CD, you got to listen to it. It's this guy named Lecrae. And I was like, all right. He's like, it's Christian hip hop. And I was like, ugh. Like, we had been to a couple of like holy hip hop events and stuff like that, and it just wasn't making it. I mean, even at my radio station, there was something called uh, uh, the Holy Hip Hop Hour, and it just wasn't like, this music is cool, but it's so cheesy, and it needs something else, right? And I truly feel like Lecrae brought substance to the music, and he brought a swag to the music. And that's why he's my favorite artist today. I mean, hands down, no other artist compares to Lecrae in my mind, because it was the first concert I went to where I was able to throw my hands up without the conviction. Because when I was working at the radio station, I was in every club on VIP access. I was at every concert. Every concert was free for me, so I could just put on my bomber jacket, put in, and go through the back door and enjoy the concert. There was no problem. So that was how Trackstars got started. Me and Sean were like, we need to find an alternative. And so we fasted for 5 days. We came back together in his dorm room, and he was in college. And we sat there and we devoured a pizza, and God gave us everything right then and there. He gave us Trackstarz. He gave us the acronym. The acronym, for people that don't know, when we always say you're in the field with the Trackstarz, field stands for focused intent to edify lyrical disciples. So everything was purpose driven. Everything was on God's timing, and we were just being obedient. And our obedience seems to have paid off. You know, God asked us to do this with humility. We never wanted to be. We never wanted it to be about any one of us individually. It was always the Trackstarz universe, the community, the followers, the fans. It was never about us, and so it was bigger than us. And so God had to have a strong leg in that in order to support this vision.
That's dope. That's dope. And then, so how did you guys come up with? So the next thing would have been Nectar, right?
Yes. So Trackstarz has always had an issue around obstacles, right? We've always tried to find the issue that was an obstacle in our way. And so Sean and Jeremiah and Rick Sincere and Miles Austin, they were all recording artists, and they were having the hardest time getting distribution. Whenever they went through CD Baby and they made a mistake on something, it took, either deleting the project and re-putting it back up. And so Sean was like, man, there's got to be a way around this. And so we got with a company called the Music Specialists, and they had a distribution deal for us through Sony's Orchard. And there was things in our back office we couldn't see, right? We were just saying, hey, we can't see our royalties. We can't see our payouts. We can't see, if a track has been uploaded yet, if it's going to show up. And so Sean was like, there's got to be a workaround. So he started dissecting all the different pieces that make distribution possible. And he said, well, if I get this and I get that and I get this and I get that, I can make this happen. And so one day he called me. He was like, I think I figured out a way for us to have our own distribution platform. And I was just like, that would be huge. And I have to say, within the first year, we had over 300 hip hop artists, Christian hip hop artists, signed to Nectar, or distributing through Nectar. And it's just continued to grow from there. We've had to make tweaks along the way. We've had issues where we have to manually distribute all these projects. We delivered over 2,500 manually distributed projects where we assign the ISRC code, we assign the UPC code, we put up every track listing, we copy and paste all the metadata, and we put it all together. And it is so time consuming, but because we love God and we love this mission and we love our universe, it makes it all worth it.
Nice. That's crazy. Like, so are you guys currently still doing that, or what's the process? Oh, wow.
So we actually just signed a deal. We haven't had the ink dry yet, but we have found a way to automate it. So now artists can actually go in and once they submit all that information, it'll automatically go up. We just have to go through and make sure we approve it. The reason why we have those approvals there is because secular artists can get into that platform just as easily. So we have to go in and approve that this is a Christian project and it can go out on our platform. So still a little bit of manual labor there, but that's to protect the brand and the consciousness of, what we do.
Does that mean you guys have to listen to each track individually then?
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So really quick, I'm going to ask you a little insider.
Sure.
So is there a season or time of the year that people are putting more music out and you guys are like, holy crap, there's so much music, we don't have enough time to listen to all this right now?
Well, here's the funny thing that I didn't mention, and I got to give homage to. Trackstarz has over 25 volunteers of the brand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So everybody has their own departments. We have department heads, we have leads, we have individuals who have their own gift, talent, and ability that they bring to the table. So we, as the grassroots guys, we don't have to actually sit there and do the listening anymore. We have filters put in place where it goes to one person's email. They listen to it. They pass it on to another person's email. It goes into a different distribution box. And then it finally gets put into my box to put up for distribution or something like that. So There's a lot of different pieces that work behind the scenes where we do get inundated with a lot. We get about 100 music submissions a week. Sometimes that can be more like 50 a day, depending on the height of everything. Tax season, July and mid-October are the heaviest volume times because people want to get their projects released before Christmas. They want to spend the money before they have to spend it on Christmas gifts. They get their tax returns in early March and April, and they want to go ahead and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to invest in studio time. I'm going to invest in this feature. I'm going to invest in promoting my project. So there's so many different things that would cause you to see a spike in music submissions and advertising and Nectar submissions. And then the summertime, everybody feels good in the summertime. Everybody wants that summer banger, that hit that goes out. You know, that's why I think Reach Records Group has gotten consistent with that summer playlist. You know, they always have something on there where you're like, oh my gosh, this track is amazing. This is going to be my ride to track whenever I'm out on my leisure time and I want to, you know, listen to some good music. So
That's crazy. That's good. It's good.
yeah.
Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so with that too, so you guys have Trackstarz, Nectar, and then now you guys just recently launched about 4 months ago is what you're saying. Render. You tell us a little
Render.
about Render.
Yeah, so Render came up as a conversation we were having with our manager. As Trackstarz, we have a manager for the group, right? So we're radio personalities, TV personalities, but we also can go out and host events and things like that. So we have a manager that's specifically for that. And so he was just kind of saying, you know, I've been around y'all for so long now, and I just feel like there's more to this whole thing of y'all just being on the internet and y'all doing this YouTube show and all this kind of stuff. He's like, do y'all really want to be on television? We were like, yeah, we want to be on television. That'd be great, you know, give some more exposure and for Christians to see, you know, the content is being put together in a professional way and it edifies God and is God honoring. And so he was just like, well, I tell you what, send me a couple of those YouTube videos, put an intro on it, throw some credits on it, and I'll send it out to a couple of TV stations. He came back to us in a matter of months, matter of weeks actually, with 3 television deals for for major networks. So that was really cool to see him, you know, telling us like, hey, this is what we got to do. Then every time we get to I love our manager because every time we get to a place where we start feeling comfortable and we're like, okay, we can calm down, he pushes us even harder. So one day we were on the phone with him. He was just like, I see y'all being more of a network. Have y'all thought about being a network? And Sean is a brainchild of information and technology and the information highway. Like his brain overloads with that stuff. And so you say something to him, he's going to run out and do it. So he went out there and he put up this Roku channel. He called me. He was like, I'm sending you this private link. Check it out and tell me what you think. So he came up with this Roku channel. It was Trackstarz TV. And I was like, wow, man, this is amazing. So we're streaming all of our content here. You know, people can put commercials in here. They can go and get their favorite videos on demand. This is amazing. And I showed it to our manager and he was just like, cool. And then Sean was doing more digging. He was doing more research. And he was just like, you know, reading about the streaming wars, right? And the fact that, you know, Disney was coming out with something and BT was coming out with something. And he was just like, I'm going to research building a streaming platform. Then a matter of days, he had a full platform rolled out to us on beta testing. Wow. I took a look at this platform and I was like, this is amazing. And he was like, yeah, but I've been doing some thinking and some praying. It doesn't need to be called Trackstarz TV anymore. And I was just like, So the way we do our brainstorming, we throw a bunch of names out there. It doesn't matter how you spell it, how you say it, what it means. We just threw names out there. And our whole team got together, about 15 of us, on a call one night, and we were just throwing out names. And Sean has this whiteboard where he's scratching through the names, and we're voting on them and what makes it to the next round. And nothing made it to the final round that we really liked, right? We were going through a bunch of different ideas in our head. And then he started saying, throw out some Bible scriptures to me. We're on the phone. I'm driving home one day and I'm just like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, let me recite some scriptures that are in my head. And I was like, he's like, give me some Bible lingo. Give me some language. But he said, but don't make it corny. Don't give me Jesus wept. And I was like, all right, got you. So I was just like, okay, what about when people challenge Jesus about whether or not they should give of the tithe and pay taxes, he said to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar and the things of God, you know, to God. And so I was just like, render. He was like, hold on, wait. He was like, render. He was like, that has to do with video processing in the final stages, and we can spell it a different way because there's already probably a render TV or a render this because it's video, right? And so we came up with RENDR, and it was not taken. We loved it. We showed it to our management team. They loved it, and our team in general saw it, and they were like, this is amazing. And then Sean went to work on the logo. Now, once Sean puts the logo on there, that's the finishing touch. If you don't love it by the time he does the logo, something's wrong with the name, and we got to go back to the table. But when we saw the logo, we were just like, oh man, this is it. This makes sense. And we showed it to a television network, and they said, what do you want to do with this? And I said, well, I want it to be its own standalone brand, separate from what Trackstarz does, separate from what we do, or anything we've done in the past. And he said, how much money do you have? And I said, well, you mean to go to work? He said, yeah. He said, I tell you what, he said, if you want me to put this on television for 30 days, you need to bring me $2 million. And I was just like, he's like, this could be its own MTV channel, its own BET standalone channel, but you need more content. And I said, okay, I got that part. He said, but if you want to try this out for a year, you need to bring me $200 million. And I'm sitting here with this executive who helped create TBN. And I was just like, okay, I'll be back. And we talked about it, and we went home, and I emailed the guy, followed up. He says, I tell you what, let me start off by putting Trackstarz on these television networks that I manage, and let's see how the traction from Trackstarz can get you the momentum you need for Render. So that's how Render was born. And, you know, because we're in this quarantine place, it's a good idea to, you know, dump a lot of content on Render. However, there's a lot of licensing that a lot of these movies and television shows have already gotten in place with Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime. So you have to kind of work around those, and those are very challenging. And so what I've been doing is I've been going on YouTube, and I've been using the Render social media to advertise to Christian hip hop artists and everyone else, like, hey, we need content, original content. If you have it, you want to get it displayed, you can do that. Then we had a problem. Render blew up in its first month. And because these streaming platforms, you have to pay for the bandwidth, we got a bill that was so big, we were like, whoa, God, you're doing something here, but we do not have the support we need to sustain it. So we started going out, talking to investors. People got excited about it. You know, we got an offer here and there. And every time we came to the table with an idea, our manager was like, oh, if they're willing to do this, they're probably willing to do that. And then we push too hard, and then they back. Then we find somebody else, and we push a little, and then we'd say, oh, they're willing to do the amount you mentioned the first time. He said, well, if they want to do that amount, they'll maybe do the next amount. So then we went back to the drawing board, and we pushed those guys away. So now we're at this point where we're like, okay, Render's going to make it on his own, and we're going to be the first streaming platform to do it with a shoestring budget. So we're figuring that out every day. But for right now, everything is taking care of itself. But yeah, Render hit us pretty hard. We had about 500,000 attempts within the first month to do something inside that site. And that was huge for us.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But we couldn't sustain it. So I haven't put any more content up since then, because I was like, I cannot have people driving to this website, and I don't have, one, enough content, two, the bandwidth to really let them watch it, you know, and pay for them to watch it. So
that's insane, man. I didn't realize it was that. That's crazy.
Oh, it's
so well, I'm looking at the time too. How are you on time?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
So like, even going into that, so how did you guys take that workload? Because I mean, you're already working, you already have a family and kids, which, I mean, that alone takes time. Yeah. And then you have Trackstarz and everything that you guys are doing there, and then you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
It's the craziest thing. I mean, we've been doing it for 14 years now, so it's embedded in us, right? We know that when we go on vacation, we take our laptops. We know that when we have a birthday or a holiday to celebrate, we've still got our laptops out, because just because I want to take a vacation, but your album needs to go up, doesn't mean I get to take a vacation. And my wife understands it. The wives understand it. They support it. They know that it's all a part of a bigger vision. You know, it's one thing if we were sitting here trying to get a barbershop off the ground or a dry cleaning company off the ground, but what we're doing is actual work for God, actual work for Jesus. And because it's that important, our wives are like, hey, go do it. So for me and my wife, we have a balance. We put our kids down at 8 o'clock every night. We spend time together, and she falls asleep around 11. And from 11 to 1:30, I try to do as much Trackstar stuff as I possibly can. And me and Sean, we talk 2 hours a day. Before this coronavirus, we were talking every morning on our drive, and we both have really long commutes. As a recruiter, I'm on the road all the time, so I'll call him during his lunch break, or I'll call him on his ride in or his ride out, and we'll talk about 2 hours, and we'll put together our entire business plan for the week. Through just the conversations that we have. And every Thursday night, we have a call of about 20 to 25 people that represent the brand. And we go through, we give updates. The team leads, they give their updates. And we talk about next level, next phase. We plan the whole show out on Thursday nights, and we're ready to go on Saturday. So everything has a clockwork to it. We just have to stick to that purpose and that goal, and we should be okay. But yeah, it's a lot of hard work.
So it's really utilizing time, being disciplined with that, and just taking every minute for what it is, and just be like, okay, how can I apply this, make it.
Yeah, and delegating too. I mean, when you have about 20 people that have volunteered to work with you on the vision that God put forth for all of us, it's not just us, you know. I will point out this too. When Jesus started looking for disciples, he looked for busy people. You know, he looked for the guys that were fishing. He looked for the guys that were just, working so hard on their craft that he was like, hey, drop that, come follow me. And so I believe the same thing. The same thing works out with us. Everybody who is a part of Trackstarz has their own brand as well. They have their own radio show, podcast. They have their own website. They have their own social media platforms. They have their own, but yet they still devote time to helping us build Trackstarz because it's the first thing that they did. And then we saw them launch their brands, and we were here for support. We were here for tips. We were here for advice. We were here to give, the proper equipment to those people and lend them the help that they need to get their brands off. So it's just a bunch of Christians who love Jesus that are all working for the same purpose, which is and the purpose is this. Our purpose is that one day, every creative will be given their gifts to God, whether they're a producer, whether they're a director, whether they're an artist, whether they're a film creative writer, spoken word artist, a poet. Everybody's giving their gifts to God and utilizing that tool. And we want to be the outlet that has you share that expression to the world. And so that is our goal and our purpose. And so we want to see people do that through the channels that they're comfortable with. And God has given us an opportunity to say, hey, come with us. Let us show you what we did, and let's see if we can recreate it in a massive way.
That's great. No, you're giving me all sorts of vision right now, man. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. So also with that, just kind of going into, you kind of touched on it a little bit. So your full-time job, what do you do for your full-time job?
So I'm a recruiter for a workforce development program, and it's called Year Up. And Year Up is a national nonprofit that works with young adults between the age of 18 to 24 to help get them college ready or workforce ready. So what we do is we give them 6 months of intensive training in the classroom. At the end of the 6 months, if they've met all our requirements, they can earn an internship to intern at a Fortune 500, Fortune 100, or a leading Atlanta corporation.
Oh, wow. That's dope.
Yeah.
How long have you been part of that organization?
4 years now. 4 years now. I started off with Year Up after God gave me a vision. I left the company and I asked my wife to give me 365 days to try to run Trackstarz full time and see how far we could go. In that time frame, Trackstarz started out, we were on about 7 radio and TV stations. In that full year, we grew to 147 stations. So God was giving us opportunity after opportunity. I was working 18-hour days. I was in school getting my master's. So my wife was the only one in the household that was working. I was generating income by doing stuff through Trackstarz. I was selling ads, and I was selling information, independent artist spotlights, where I do videos with artists and talk to them about the main idea of behind their music. And I was sustaining. And so we got to a year's time, and my wife I asked God, I said, give me a sign that that I've done the right thing and that I'm not leading my family into, a dark place by being irresponsible and holding on to this dream and this vision that you've given us. And my wife came to the table one day. She had her iPad out, and I knew exactly what that meant. She was going to tell me exactly the day that we were expecting our next child. And that's exactly what she did. She was like, I'm pregnant. I don't know if you want to go back to work or not. And I was driving home from my wife's sister's graduation, and I was like, God, literally, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And the phone rang, and it was a company that I applied to called Year Up. And they sped me up through the process. They asked me while I was driving home if I could come in this week for an interview. I went in for the interview. They told me this takes about 5 months, but we only have 5 days. And I was like, hey, I'm ready. So I went into interview after interview. I interviewed with 5 people, and the company was called Year Up, right? So I told my wife 365 days. So God was literally saying, how much clearer can I make this for you? So I took the job without even, before I even called her up to tell her that I was taking the job, we had discussed it. Like, hey, if I go in on this 5th interview and they offer me a job, no matter what the salary is, God is going to provide, right? She's like, yes. Took the job, got back to work. They gave me an amazing benefits package, 4 weeks of vacation a year, 100% healthcare coverage, personal development money for me to invest in what it is that I really want to do. It was amazing. And so it's an amazing company to work for. Honestly, want my CEO to run for president one day, and I will back him completely for that. We're in a challenging time right now with the coronavirus. We're doing everything virtually online. So it's been a blessing to just be able to move our entire space of program onto a virtual space, and we haven't skipped a beat. So God is good there. We work with young adults who really need an opportunity. On average, the household income that we work with is about $19,000 for everybody in the home. And what we do is we take young adults and we get them on a fast track to career success, where within 1 year's time, they could be earning somewhere between $18 and $21 an hour working for these corporate 500, 100, and leading Atlanta corporations. So it's amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. So you've been there for 4 years. So have you seen any, well, I'm sure you have, but like, is there a success story that kind of sticks out to you with any of these young adults?
Oh yeah. So several success stories that stick out to me. I have a young man who was actually out on internship about 2 years ago, and he was just giving it his all. He was interning at one of the credit monitoring bureaus. It was Experian, and he's interning there, and he starts, doing basic work with them in the development side. And he comes up with a platform, him and his manager, to make the processes of something that they do on their platform better and faster. And so he put his whole heart and mind and soul into it, and he developed this idea. And his manager left the company, and he's making about $60,000 a year, young, bright student, 21 years old. And he starts saying, hey, now that my manager's leaving, can I apply for the position? And they were like, hey, that's a manager's position. You'd have to run your own team. We don't think you have enough experience, but I tell you what, let us do an external search and an internal search, and we'll come back to you if there's anything that we can't fulfill in that need. So they went out, they did this external and internal search for him, and they said, we couldn't find anybody to do it. How would you feel about running your own team, and what does that look like, and what would it take? And he said, sure, I'll run my own team. He said, double my salary. So now this young man is about 24 years old, making about $135,000 a year.
Wow.
Working for one of the top companies in credit managing and bureau investigation. And he is absolutely killing it. And that came from him sitting in a classroom for 6 months, learning professional and technical development skills.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So it's amazing.
So with that, man, just so you said a little bit about that, how it affected, how coronavirus has affected your company, your organization that you work for. How has it affected home life, as well as how has it affected your guys' Trackstarz? How has it affected Trackstarz?
So it hasn't affected Trackstarz not one bit. As a matter of fact, it's helped us develop into some sharper ideas. For instance, right now we have something going on where if an artist buys a package from us, um, part of the proceeds of their package goes toward the Corona Relief Fund of a nonprofit that we've identified. It's called Hope Atlanta.
Hmm.
And so a proceed of what they spend on advertising on Trackstar's website uh, is actually going to Corona relief. So while they're getting this, tax money and they're getting this relief money coming in, who knows what they're going to do with it? But whatever they do with it, we're going to put a portion of what they give us toward good use. And so, we've seen an increase in people doing more music from home, people submitting more projects through Nectar, people buying more advertising through Trackstarz. So it's been great. And the good thing about it is we have a lot of big events that were scheduled for the year that have been either postponed or rescheduled. And it gives us a chance to really work that in. We were supposed to be a special guest at the 2020 Fest in California.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was something that we were huge promoters of because I'm really good friends with the organizers. And now we have a whole nother year to build that up and to plan and to execute on that. We're supposed to be going to the Stellar Awards this year. We won a Stellar last year with God's House of Hip Hop
Hmm.
radio station. And now we have an opportunity to really cultivate like our nomination for this year and really support it and advertise it more and work closer with the Stellar Awards than we had before. So it's given us a chance to sit back and breathe a little bit. I'm on my last project with Nectar before I go back to focusing on Render. And so my last project with Nectar is slated to end sometime this week. And when that ends, I'll be able to focus on Nectar again. I mean, on Render again. So, God has really blessed us. The balance at home, my wife works from home. She's a virtual teacher, so she has an opportunity to really, not really skip a beat with her company.
Right.
So we have our three kids here. We have processes set up. We got a little theater room downstairs in our basement. So we got the two smaller kids in that room while our older daughter is on the laptop doing Zoom meetings and things of that nature. I can mute my sessions on my Zoom meetings and sit there and kind of watch her, and my wife can do the same. So we have our eyes on our kids the entire time that they're here. And then we have the middle child on ABC Mouse. So everybody's learning, everybody's growing with this new norm. It has been challenging. So I took off some time from work so we could get a schedule going.
Right.
Um, and now my daughter's on spring break this week, so she's playing with her sisters in the basement, and my wife's got we got cameras on them, so we're watching them from a distance, or my wife is sitting at the table watching them eat their lunch and that kind of thing. I just made lunch for them, so just we have our schedule, but it's giving me time to get closer to God, focus in on Trackstarz on a more consistent hourly basis. I think now I'm able to stay up later and still feel refreshed because I get those extra 2 hours that I wouldn't be on the road the next morning. So it's good. It works out good for us.
That's crazy. So going outside of your house,
Mm-hmm.
what is the what would you say like the atmosphere or general feel that you're getting from the area that you're in right now?
Man, I want to see people take it more seriously. I go out with my gloves and my mask on. I'm dressed to head to toe so that nothing, gets on me. Also, because we're dealing with pollen season, and that's really bad for me too. But when I go out to the grocery stores, there's far few in between people. All the I live next to a mall. I live 5 minutes away from a mall, so when I drive by that mall, it's completely shut down. Restaurants are shut down. I'm just not used to seeing anything that I'm seeing right now, but what a blessing to be able to see people that are taking it serious and knowing that we're taking care of our loved ones by not going out there, becoming asymptomatic and spreading the virus to other people that may not be that may be more vulnerable to it. My mother lives 5 minutes away from me, so every time I leave the house, I put myself on another 14-day quarantine before she can come over my house. She's going to be over this week because I haven't been out in a while, so that she can see my kids and help, support them through this time. She misses everybody. She's 5 minutes away, but she can't come over because she's over the age of 60, and we want to make sure that we're not asymptomatic carrying this virus and pass it on to her. So
Right.
hopefully this week she'll be over to kind of, hang out with the kids.
Right, right. Yeah, that's been one thing too that we've been challenged with is just the whole like we still I mean, when you have kids, they don't get it as much. Like we explained it to our two
Yeah,
kid, our two middle kid, or our oldest and our middle child, and they kind of understand. Like they understand there's the coronavirus going on. That it's really people can get it really easily and really quickly.
yeah,
So we're not doing play dates. We're not hanging out with people.
yeah,
We haven't seen Papa and Lita. We haven't seen Grandpa and
yeah,
Grandma. We haven't seen Grams and Grandpa, other Grandpa. So it's just like one of those situations where it's just like, okay, how do we keep these kids entertained as well as
yeah,
like still
yeah.
keep them physically engaged like with activities and stuff. And that's been definitely a challenge. And like I hear what you're saying.
Hmm.
It's just interesting times, man. It's weird. It trips me out. I'm like, am I dreaming? Sometimes I'm just like, no,
Yeah,
it's what it is, man. It's what it is right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
We don't know how long it's gonna be, but just remembering that God is good and He's got us.
Hmm.
Um, with that, also, I wanted to ask you. So, what are you currently doing spiritually? Like, how are you staying? You said you're getting more time with God. What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm meditating more. Honestly, today's a big meditation day for me. Today is the seventh anniversary of my dad's passing,
Mm,
and so on these days, I usually look at photos and listen to music that he and I would have listened to together. And so my wife gives me that time throughout the day to kind of meditate. And it's actually today, right? Like so,
wow.
today is the day that I'm reflecting on his memory.
Sorry for your
But
loss, man.
thank you so much. But I'm on the Bible app challenge with some friends from Trackstarz. We're doing the Bible in 1 year. So when this first all started happening, I started getting behind. So now I do more Bible reading in a day than I do on most days since we've been out on the coronavirus. Um, I, I walk the dog and I just talk to God. And I look up at the sky and I wonder when things are going to go back normal, if they're going to go back normal. And I'm preparing in a way, right? I see a lot of people saying like, "Oh, this is the time to own a gun." Oh, things could get the dollar may lose its value, and what if we're not? What if we don't have the kind of money that we had in the stock market that we did beforehand? And I'm really not worried about that stuff. I made a piece that if God calls any of us home during this time, hey, to live to live with Christ is the bigger gain. We know that. And so in my mind, I'm just like, you know what? I'd have to make that peace, even though I don't like focusing or meditating on that very thought.
Right,
One of
right.
my best friends from high school, he lost his dad to the coronavirus on Friday.
Mm,
And as I'm sitting there texting with him, I'm like, I can't imagine what he's going through. Like when my father passed away, we had this wonderful celebration. We remembered him in a way that lives on in my mind. We got to put him in a grave site and see where we memorialized him. My friend is going to go to a grave site with 10 people
right,
and try to honor his dad's memory in that way, out of a lifetime lived, and the people that want to celebrate and send him home to
right.
glory the right way, they can't do that. And so my heart has been reflecting on that there's so many different things. I know a lot of people have passed since this has happened, and it's been for different reasons, but the fact that it's happening and then they can't have these funerals or celebrations the way they want to has been devastating.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, because I mean, you just brought us way down. But
Sorry.
no, that's real though. I mean, it's real. Like I'm making a joke of it, but like it's
Yeah.
real. Like what would you say to encourage people? Like how would you encourage somebody during this time, believer or not?
Man, I've been wrestling with the fact whether or not I want to go back and talk to one of my atheist friends and ask them how they feel right now. Although I know that would be in the sense of me, touting my faith in their face and kind of like saying, "See, I told you, you better be ready when Christ comes back." But for me, it's more of enjoy this time with your family, listen to the voice of God and what He's telling you to do or what He's saying to you. There's a time for discipline right now, so you can discipline yourselves and get more into the Word and really figure out what His message and His purpose is in all of this, because God is at the center of this thing. Um, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, there was a saying going around that this was going to be a year of great revival, that God was going to raise up His apostolic chiefs. And so to me, I feel like we're seeing this, we're on the cusp of this. I've been seeing celebrities post on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube a whole lot more that about their Christian faith that we didn't necessarily ever hear them promoting Christianity beforehand. And now I feel like the world has gotten to a place where, hey, talking about Jesus is normal now. Talking about God is cool again to the non-believer. Being able to lean on a prayer or say something about faith is okay now.
Right.
Because the word God is used universally, right? So we have to say Jesus in order to put the Christian stamp on it. And so when people are saying, hey, pray to God, even when the president says, pray to God, people could be like, oh, my God is somebody else. It's not Jesus. Or my God is this figure. It's not Jesus. And so I think it's kind of normalized in a way. But when Christians come out with it, it's kind of like, oh, you know what? They're the faith that has the belief that a savior is coming back to save the world from all of this, and that God's hands are on this, and nothing's going to change until this nation repents and changes its ways, and God hears our prayer and changes the culture, the culture and layout of our land. So I truly would encourage people to just stand on your faith. I said this on the Trackstarz show a couple of weeks ago. Like, I'm a little tired of Christians right now. I'm tired of the way they're projecting on social media. And I want them to say, hey, you know what? Let's be wise about this. Let's not get into arguments about whether or not this is a government conspiracy or whether or not this is the devil. We know all the makings of what the enemy tries to do to bring us down. But at the same time, give God the honor and glory for everything that he does. And even in these hard times, find a way to praise him. I am sorely, sorely concerned about my brothers in Christian hip hop and across the world that are a part of this 6.6 million unemployment rate, right? Christian hip hop artists who've had every tour and every show canceled, that have had to go on and say, well, I need to find another way to support my family. The money's not coming in. I can't do it off album sales alone. And it makes me just hurt for them, because there's a way to figure it out, and we just have to be smart about doing it. So go out there, believe in God, believe that he has his hand on everything, no matter what the makeup of our economy looks like. At the end of this thing, don't be discouraged. Don't get worried. Don't feel defeated if your 401k doesn't look the same the way it did. We don't rely on 401ks. We rely on God to provide. And so I truly believe that there's going to be a bounce back where non-believers see our God and they see Jesus and they're like, oh, this is what I've been missing in my life. Yeah, give me some of that.
That's good. That's good. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, no problem.
So we're going to kind of wrap up here.
Sure.
So going forward with Trackstarz, with your job, with your family, what's it going to look like for you guys? Like, what are you projecting, or what are you thinking? I mean, obviously we can't tell the future, but like, what do you see in these arenas of your life going forward? And what would you like to see? What do you think might happen, type of thing?
I think Trackstarz is going to figure this all out. I think I was telling Sean the other day, Sean Tan, I'm a partner. I was saying, this is the time for us to start feeding radio stations and TV stations our content. People need to know our podcast is out here. People need to know that we have a radio show and that we have a TV show, or that we're even in the film industry now, right? Trackstarz has written a short film that we want to get produced. And so now is the time to start making those relationships, so that when this quarantine is lifted, we'll already be in those spaces. We'll be the brand that survived, the brand that thrived during that time, the brand that cultivated new ideas, the brand that is going to stand out in the forefront of people's mind of encouragement and hope. And so we're just really trying to figure out, what aren't we doing for people that we can actually do, or that we should have been doing all along.
That's good. So what about for your 9 to 5?
For my 9 to 5, I see my 9 to 5 getting good. Just the fact that, well, honestly, I've always tried to convince my 9 to 5 that we should have more work from home days, because I do a lot of driving in traffic, and I do a lot of recruitment. And so I've been like, let us have two days out the week where we don't have to go to the office, and we can do this from home, and we can show how, diligent and faithful we can be. And I'll just say this, because of my Trackstarz background, I've been able to add added value to my company.
Right.
We started saying, well, what are our ways of recruiting on social media? And people were like, oh, somebody needs to go to the office and record a video of us inviting people into the fall session. And I was like, well, we don't have to go to the office. I said, we can use videos we already have. We can cut them up. We can put bumpers on them. We can put voiceovers on them. And they were like, who knows how to do that stuff? And I was like, I do. And they were like, oh, wow, if you could do that, that'd be so great. So, you know, I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure out these things, how to create video and how to make snippets of the content we already have, how we can best utilize that. I have to Wednesday to turn in some samples. So I'm praying to God to give me some more ideas. I've been using social media, YouTube, to try to figure out how do I give the best presentation to my job to where this could become not just a local recruitment effort, but a national recruitment effort, you know?
Right, right. Nice. And then with your family, what do you guys see going forward?
Man, to be completely honest with you, I am not a bit, um, I'm not a bit close to having cabin fever. I will never have cabin fever. I am a homebody all day, every day. I have been a person all my life who has adapted to the things around me, whether or not it was my first house, which was full of, which was 60 years old, and me and my dad, we rebuilt it, and I had, you know, all sorts of problems from rodents to roaches and to water bugs and flooding. I mean, all of this in this little tiny house that I bought, but I adapted to it, and because it was my own, I took so much pride and ownership in it that I went to Lowe's every weekend and I worked on a project with my dad, and we completely gutted out this whole house and rebuilt it to a very nice home. So for me, it's like adapting in any environment. My wife and I, we have come to the idea that these kids are probably going to be in the house for 5 months. And how are we going to entertain them? How are we going to give them their one-on-one mommy daddy time, you know, the attention that they need? So I will never become cabin fever because as a creative, as a person who enjoys arts, Netflix doesn't have enough videos, you know, Hulu doesn't have enough videos, Amazon Prime doesn't have enough videos to bore me, you know? So we're always coming up with new show ideas. Sean and I are constantly talking through things. So we're figuring out how to best utilize this time. And my wife is a podcaster as well. She has a podcast called Becoming Eva, and she does it with DJ Jeremiah's wife, our other partner. And we give each other that space. You know, right now you see this setup behind me, but on Saturdays it's set up with her stuff. You know, it's got her logo on the television screen. It's got her banner up. So, you know, we take turns, you know, the kids are going to be kids, you know, let them be kids. They have a play area downstairs that stays junky, as dirty as they want. I clean it up maybe like once a week. I'm a real big person about like tripping over stuff and like seeing stuff that is out of place.
Right.
But we have rules. Toys don't go beyond a certain point in the basement. If they come into my man cave, my theater area, they get flushed back and they may get broken in the process because I'm kicking them, not putting them over. I'm very serious about that. So my girls, they know me. They know Daddy's going to say something about this. My 6-year-old is brilliant. She's bright. So she knows Daddy's not going to like this. And she'll tell the 3-year-old and the 1-year-old, like, hey, come on over here. My 1-year-old is like the oldest kid. She acts like an adult most days, you know? So you get her going and she's cleaning up, wiping stuff down. She's a trip.
That's awesome.
So we'll manage.
Nice. All right. So we're going to wrap it up right now. Yeah. What do you want to plug before we get off the air right here?
Man, let me plug the whole Trackstarz universe. It's because of the Trackstarz universe that we're able to go on and do what we do. I already plugged the wives and said that they're the backbone of our support systems, and they let us do what we do. The team, Trackstarz has over 25 plus volunteers that help make this work out, from the writing team to the production team to the marketing team to the social media team. To the team that listens to music submissions and the team that listens to video submissions and listens to beat submissions. Our Instagram @Trackstarz, our Twitter @Trackstarz, the Facebook page, the official Trackstarz universe. Join the Trackstarz universe. Send your music to Nectar so that you can join 400 other Christian hip hop artists that are distributed through a brand that loves Jesus. And shout out to you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Mike, I really appreciate it. I know you more formally as Fenix Reborn. And so I'm just grateful to be here with you, grateful that you reached out and wanted to do this with me. I'm humble, man. I don't get many opportunities like this to really share my heart and emotion. So I appreciate it very, very much. You know, a lot of times we do group interviews. So to have me individualized one-on-one is really special, and I appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you so much. It was an honor. It was a huge honor, man. Once again, we're here with Ryan Righteous of the Trackstarz and many other things. Thank you again, sir. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Deuces.
Peace.
Yeah.